I know that CT is on, so I don't know if CT wanted to address what she emailed us earlier today.
We'll open it
No,
up
I
for
thought you were going to make the statement.
I see Bill.
I don't care.
Okay.
Okay, I got everybody.
All right. Dorothy, you confirm we have a quorum, or I see Bob, Andy,
Yes, sir, we do.
Bill. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Everyone's present.
All right, sounds good. All right, and it is 6 p.m. So good evening, and we'll now call our June 23rd, 2020 Town Council workshop to order. If you'd like to join me in the pledge, I know we don't all have a flag, but I think we know what it looks like. So, pledge allegiance
Just to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'll join me briefly for our invocation. Father, as always, we pray for your guidance as we make decisions for our town and work to serve in the best interest of our entire community. Guide us as we look at this proposal tonight. Help us to make all the right decisions. Help keep our town safe from COVID and our entire community. And as always, we remember our first responders and ask for a blessing upon those, as well as our soldiers and men of the military and women of the military that serve us day in and day out. Amen. All right. Any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, we did receive one public comment prior to the meeting tonight, and it's from CT Allen, who sits on pretty much as the chair of the Windermere Wine and Dine Committee. And I'll just read it as follows. It was a very hard decision to make, but Windermere Wine and Dine 2021 has been suspended for now. CT knows how much our community and participants love this event. But their first priority now is helping their loyal supporters, restaurants, and businesses recover during these phases of reopening. We also want to make sure how to keep everyone safe and healthy when this event does return. But during this time, Windermere Wine and Dine has continued to help our community with funding for projects such as town cameras for our resident safety, additional pedestrian crosswalk lights, a sensory room at the Gotha Middle School, a covering over the patio at Windermere High School for the students, and sorry about this, BCA lunch in the cafeteria is too small for everyone to fit, and a grant for helping Nearland Gardens to stay afloat during these unprecedented times. It is my hope that we can bring this event back when it is safe for everyone. And that's from CT. So right now, the Windermere Wine and Dine 2021 is on hold. Sorry for the stuttering when I'm reading. I haven't had my contacts sent to me yet. They are about 3 weeks overdue. So I'm with my old prescription right now.
I think we got the point, and certainly CT, thank you for the email. And as always, thank you and the entire committee for Windermere Wine and Dine. I know that was it's a very, very difficult decision. We're all having to make really, really difficult decisions at this point, and you know, we'll continue to make those decisions with the information we have in front of us, and then you know, we'll hope for a quick recovery and we can get back on track. But again, thank you for your commitment to the town and all the great things that Windermere Wine and Dine has done for our community. All right. I think at this point, if there's no further public comment, seeing none, we will move into new business item E, and that is our Windermere Pavilion. Is Mr. Fitzgibbon? Are you going to present that, sir?
Yes, sir. I can
Thank
do
you.
that.
All right, sounds good.
So I'm assuming that everybody has read their packet on the back history on kind of how we got here. And I think we've had some previous conversations, so I don't have to belabor that point on kind of how we got there. We did, at the request of the town council, actually form a committee. The committee members were outlined in your proposal in your package. And through the process, we came up with looking at where do we want to have this as a placemaker within the town, as well as coordinating it in the overall master plan, and then also looking at it contextually from a pedestrian scale to fitting it to the architecture of the town, as well as having some type of sound, audio, protrusion outward, not backwards. And so all of these kind of acoustical solutions and everything were kind of brought into it. We also, if you want to scroll down, or I can just review it, Robert, you can stay right on this page, is, you know, we kind of had to develop a program. You know, anytime you're getting ready to conceptually design anything, it's nice to have a program. So we did know that we needed to have some type of availability to serve snacks and food and that kind of stuff. So we do have a little concession area. Again, remember, it's a concession area that doesn't have kitchen equipment. We didn't want to get into the costs and all the other things that brings with it. So it is basically just a place in which you can serve food out of. So whether it's either catered or whether it's grilled out back and brought in for service, obviously part of it, we needed to provide the proper amount of electrical room for gear, for lighting, for future stuff. We do have 2 little wings for storage. So as we do have events that come in, maybe we have an opera or we have a, you know, a small band or whatever, just being able to have wing wall storage is an important concept within the overarching design of this type of kind of outdoor amphitheater, if you will. Also have the restroom facilities, both men and women. And in addition to that, we do have 2 family restrooms at the end, which are both unisex family restrooms. So, and that was based on and working with our code folks just to make sure that based on this type of facility, based on the potential population and view shed to the facility, that we were offering the bathroom space. If you do look at that plan to kind of orient you a little bit, you can see the dotted lines behind it where the community and the bathroom is. The bathroom is actually just to the lower left stage. Community room kind of bisects the electric room. So it kind of gives you a flavor of the approximate location. Again, remembering, it's important for us to remember that this is a very, very high level concept. It was really a package that we came together as a group of people to develop specifically for funding mechanisms. So we kind of call it in our business the eye candy package. It's the package that goes out to be able to sell and actually generate the funding and the revenues associated with potentially building something. You know, once we establish that, then we'll also look at sight lines. We'll do sightline studies, master plan it. It may rotate a little bit, but generally thinking that's about the location that it would be. And we did that in context to also say that we didn't want it to be any farther back from where vertical structures currently are, especially understanding the sensitivity to Fifth and Forest in the potential use of that space. So, and then also with the curvilinear nature to it, it projects the audio and the acoustics outbound, almost kind of like an inverted catcher's mitt, if you will, so that we end up with minimal sound bleed going out the back. So actually it may even be an improvement over what we currently have, where you just set up a large stage and it bleeds everywhere. So in doing so, then we went and we kind of studied what the elevation of this thing would look like, and understanding scale and its proximity. We actually were able to meet with both the long range planning and the DRB. We actually had 2 options, and we felt that that was fair enough, that we wanted to provide 2 options, both from a costing perspective as well as a visualization of the look. This is the one, option 2 is the one that both DRB and long range planning committee kind of selected as the path moving forward. They like this look better than the other one, which had the flat roofs. Obviously, that's a little more cost effective to build, but they felt that this one looked a little more in context with the town of Windermere and kind of park pavilion kind of feel to it. And again, I think it is important because every time you look at a rendering, and I want to just preface this, the first impression is, oh my gosh, this thing looks huge. But when you look at the scale of the person in relationship to the building, it's really not that big. Anytime you do a rendering and you're down looking at camera level of someone sitting Indian style on the ground and looking up at a building, it kind of gives the impression that it's actually a lot larger than it really is. The existing community room and bathroom take up about 2/3 of this building, just under 2/3 of this building. So that kind of gives you the context and the scale, and it's really not much higher. The one thing that was important for us, and Robert, if you can just scroll back to the plan view, is to be able to have some flexibility for the use of the space. It was very important for us. So you kind of have this little lawn area that's out in front. We can use the stage for outdoor movie nights. We can actually bring orchestras in where, the brass instruments and some of the other instruments are up on stage. And then you have the lower pit for the lower pit instruments, which would actually be out in front of the stage on the lower level. All of the stage is accessible through ramps, both ADA accessible as well as for loading and unloading of equipment. If you notice the ramps in the front, and then they're strategically hidden by the walls in the screen. And then we would probably have steps, as you can kind of see, there's little steps that are kind of curvilinear up the front. Most stages you want to have accessibility both around the wings of the stage as well as for actors, actresses, dancers, whomever that may be, to be able to access the stage straight up from the steps. So again, making it a very accessible stage and also very functional for multifunction use. So with that, that's kind of the process that we went through over probably about a 4 to 5 month period with the folks that we had on the committee. We had a wide berth of folks, some, heavily into architecture, some heavily into construction, some in real estate. And we did have representatives of the Rotary as well as Chris being the liaison for the town council, and then also being part of the downtown business committee. So with that, I can open it up to questions. The one thing that I would suggest is that I wouldn't get completely caught up on the design and the makeup of what the building is. Are those wood trusses versus steel? Is it, what are the little red dots, on the front of the building? The intent there with on the red little placards on the front of the building, we're actually, we'd look at doing kind of a similar lap siding that we're actually doing in the new facility. So contextually it works with the architecture. And then those little red plaques would be potentially glass plates etched with donors' names in it. Do they need to be red? No, we just, we're just, again, remember high level concept. What we wanted to do is just show that we are being careful to understand that as people do donate to this, that we're going to have to come up with some type of concept to honor the donorship. So anyways, with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you guys might have.
John,
Thank you, John.
Real quick, who's going to pay for this?
Right now, the intent is that it would be 100%, the only thing that the town is offering up is the property, and then the rest of it would be 100% paid for by donations that are either raised through the downtown business or through Rotary, or a mixed combination of both.
Thank you, John.
But it is important that we are part and parcel to actually projecting the design. I would highly recommend that the town actually does the architectural drawings and design of the facility to ensure that it's designed to commercial standards, and it has the full vetting process through both the town council as well as our public works for maintenance and those kind of things too. So.
Thank you, John. That's good. So very, very interesting presentation. I'll ask the estimated cost at some point here, only mostly out of curiosity, so we know what kind of lift we have in terms of fundraising in front of everybody. I thought the taking into account the acoustical projection was savvy and smart. We do want to be careful with our neighbors over there on between 5th and 6th on Forest there. The nod to Fred Pryor. Also, I mean, the one thing I know we talked about scale a little bit. It is a little difficult without measurements. I know that it's conceptual, but maybe we could ballpark those measurements. And then I like the look of it. My only concern is, do we think is it a tad modern maybe, in terms of fitting with the other things, or you feel like you can bring those elements in enough to bring a comfort level there? Those are my questions, John.
Yeah, and very good questions, especially on the architecture, because, you know, when you start to look at some of the transformations that we're making through the design look of the new facilities, where we were actually able to, you know, keep the architecture of both the PD and the facilities and the admin side, but yet be able to engage those two buildings in somewhat of a kind of a Lloyd modernistic kind of feel with all glass and everything else to kind of give us that look of feeling an in and out.
True.
It started to really work together architecturally, where we're looking at, you know, upgrading, kind of maintaining our DNA in design, but yet still allowing it to be part of the 21st century in design elements. And again, remember, as we begin, this is probably going to get built well beyond after the facilities are built. And so, you know, as we start to see contextually how those buildings begin to look in their environment, we'd probably have an architect that would blend those in as well.
That's reasonable. Do you have an estimated cost? I mean, I know it's ballpark at this point. We don't have.
Yeah, but, you know, Stephen and I kind of ran some numbers, but, you know, numbers lately are crazy. But, you know, so we thought that it would probably be somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000, depending on how much infrastructure we put in place for lighting and sound and audio and those kind of things.
So the only comment I would make in terms of that number, and I know that there'll be different committee, maybe Chris can address this for us. So, you know, that's a good lift. We're going to want a pretty solid fundraising plan for something of that scale, so we can not only help, but just so we can have a good capital improvement plan in place and capital building plan in place for something with those numbers. So.
Yeah, and I think the other important piece is that, you know, as we are out fundraising, we have to remember that there's infrastructure associated with the building. So it's not just generating money for a building. You know,
Sure.
You've got courtyard, hardscape, you know, power, electric, utilities, and all that stuff that has to be part and parcel to that. Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's an all or nothing kind of thing, right? You know, what you don't want to do is make a commitment to a building and then find out that the town's got, you know, $200,000 liability to build the courtyard and bring all the utilities to them.
Right. Agreed. Thank you. Council, how about, since, you know, we're doing this virtually, I'll just go ahead and I'll start with Councilperson McKinley.
I like the design. The drawing, as you're looking at it, just kind of gives a brick or a stone appearance to it. But now that you've mentioned it would be shiplap, that makes sense. I like the design with the curvature so that the sound will be projected forward rather than back to the residential area. I'd just like to thank everybody for their hard work on it. I think it looks great.
Thank you, Councilperson. Councilperson Williams, comments, sir?
I really don't have any that McKinley hasn't already touched on. I love the way it looks. I saw some of the earlier versions, so I like how far it's come from the original ones, the first round of drawings. You know, I think as long as we see a good fundraising plan put together, this could be a great project.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Councilperson Andrew?
First, thanks to Rotary and to all of the stakeholders that have been involved to this point, because it's tremendous. I think that our events in this town are a great amenity to our neighbors, and this is going to be something that's going to improve them for many. So that said, I just have a few things. First of all, I love the ADA accessibility. And I think that where it's situated right now, of course, it kind of needs to be there anyway, because there aren't a lot of other options. But with the basketball courts being used as some additional seating area, that's a lot more ADA accessible friendly than is sitting on dirt or grass or something like that. So I'm glad to see where it's positioned. I think that if there are any concerns around security of, I mean, obviously some of the backstage areas would be locked and whatnot, but to make sure that we prevent misuse or abuse of the outside structure, surely we could put in some, you know, like motion controlled lighting or cameras or things like that, like we already have over at Town Hall. I'm wondering about donations and sponsorships. So conditions on usage or conditions from Rotary or others, I think that we want to be sensitive to what donors want the usage for this to be, but also have kind of a plan in place on how to address that and make sure that there aren't any limitations on what the town might want to do for that. And then also regarding sponsorships and donations, I like the idea of being able to have some sort of, you know, panels that are on here, but I think that because it's a community structure, there might be many people who can't, you know, reach the level of like a $500 sponsorship or, you know, donation or things like that, that we also want to incorporate some other way to, you know, not turn away any size donation, but be able to recognize anyone who contributes. So maybe not all of those little pavers in the wall or something like that, but in addition to that, maybe have signage or something else where everyone wants to be a part of it to be recognized. Those are
Hey, Liz, and one of the things too, when we work, because we actually had that same conversation, and so they became architectural elements, but you know, talking about certain level of donorship earned, you know, it's kind of like buying the brick, right? You know, when you're putting down the brick pavers kind of thing, and that's kind of what we talked about. So you know, you may look at certain donor levels, get the glass plaque. Others may be just on a plaque listed as general sponsorship and all the people that contributed to it.
excellent.
So
Because I think that certainly you do want to encourage people to, if they can have the means, or, you know, if they do have the means and they want to be a little bit more active in their donation, great. But, you know, just as long as we have a way to recognize everyone and encourage anyone to be able to support this, I think that.
Agreed. And what we didn't want to do is get into big arguments where it's, you know, called Raymond James Stadium, you know, because somebody gave a lot of money. You know, it's still the Windermere Pavilion. So, you know, we were trying to figure out a modest way of being able to, you know, let them be who they are and, you know, give them some type of, you know, recognition for their large donations in a very strategic way.
Great. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson. Councilperson Martini.
Hello, can everybody hear me? I'm in the car, sorry. I think I love the design. I think it's great, knowing that it's gonna be altered slightly to blend in more with Town Hall and the new town facilities. And I want to thank John and Stephen and the rest of the committee for all the hard work you guys put into this. It looks great, and I think you're on the right path. The only questions I would have is to make sure that, you know, we are contacting the residents that are nearby to make sure they're, you know, everybody's okay with it, and that we're keeping their sanity and you know, needs in mind. I know, you know, that's always been a top priority from day one. So so I already know the answer to that question. My other question is there anything or have you guys talked about anything that we're going
Councilman Martini.
to set up our temporary town facilities close to there that would benefit project, you know, as far as info that. Is that it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Bill, we lost you for part of that. I don't know if it was just me because I see I'm frozen.
Okay.
Maybe it was everyone.
Councilman Martini, we did try to reach out to the neighbors.
Yeah, okay.
Behind, we first wanted to, we discussed with them the temporary facilities and how they're oriented. They had some concerns relative to the handicap parking being on Fifth Avenue, or actually Forced. And we tried to take those concerns back to the engineers. We tried to work it to where we would have the handicap parking on Fifth Avenue, but it just didn't work out because we would have to lose more trees, and then we would have to move the entire structure to the south. So we did explain to them that, again, you know, when we have these temporary facilities, we're going to try to landscape, make it look nice. And then after we discussed the temporary facilities, we went into the discussion of, okay, by the way, town council is going to be discussing this tonight. I think one of the residents is actually on the Zoom meeting tonight. But they expressed that they did like the idea of the design because it could get noisy during some of these events. And that will be a noise pollution barrier and direct all that noise back over to the east towards the crowd and not towards the residents themselves.
Okay, good. Good. The second part of my question, I don't know if it got cut off or not, if there's anything that we're doing to prepare for the temporary town facilities that could benefit later on for this project, such as infrastructure, plumbing, electrical, that type of thing. Is there any way we can, is it too soon to build in, you know, that type of thinking on this?
Yeah, and Bill, because what we're looking at is temporary construction, you know, dropping a meter on the back side, you know, I mean, some of the you know, the community room already has electric, so that we may be able to utilize portion of that. The community room already has its own septic. We're not using that. We're going completely as a temporary setup for the town. So, you know, holding tanks, those kind of things, and not spending a ton of money putting in a septic system that will ultimately have to tear back out. And because it's too early and we're really just in the early concept phase, I couldn't even tell you what meter size you need and, you know, how big of a septic tank you need, you know, at this point. So anything that you could try and do early on would probably end up costing us more to modify later.
Right. We don't want to have to redo it, but good job on it so far. It looks great. Fantastic.
Outstanding. Any further comment from council? All right, seeing none. Go ahead.
Councilman Sapp.
Oh, gosh. Every single time. I'm sorry, Councilman Sapp, you're not on my screen here, buddy. So please, and you were going to probably address the fundraising portion as well.
Well, yeah, what I'm looking for is, you know, and we certainly can run the plan by council, you know, before we put the final stamp on it. But I want to get everybody's kind of feelings of the naming of the building, if that is going to be off limits or not, if we're going to keep it Windermere Pavilion and that is it, just to avoid, you know, as John alluded to, of having, you know, large corporations or something of that nature, you know, putting their name on there. So I just want to get everybody's feeling on that, you know, as we put it together.
Sounds good. Well, I mean, from my perspective, I'm not anti-naming in any way. I think that when you enter into the realm of fundraising at a $500,000 or more as we roll this out, you know, I think it is a good idea to have guidelines and a very, very solid plan in terms of everything from when you break ground, you know, what is the magic number to break ground and those type of things. But we should talk about that up front because that will definitely influence the type of fundraising plan that would be built out to get us to where we want to go here. But, you know, personally, I don't have naming issues if it gets us to having a very nice facility and we're able to bring in that level of donors, as long as it's nothing you know, offensive or anything like that. I am okay with naming, but council may feel differently.
May I chime in? I'd like to say that if we have somebody who has worked as a development director or something of that nature for nonprofits or for other organizations that do a lot of fundraising, it would be good to tap that resource to make sure that we have that input. And maybe you all know somebody already who can do that. But I think that in order to put together, like you said, a mindful plan, when we go forward and ask for sponsorships or donations, we should be able to state what's reasonable in terms of things like, you know, if we wanted to say maybe it's not in perpetuity, but it's for, you know, if you put in X amount of dollars or whatever level, you can have your name on the building for however many years, like some stadiums do. Or also some of those things, like I was saying about conditions that they might have otherwise regarding types of programming or usages or whatever. So we could have something to put forward that would attract people, but also protect the town.
So agreed that it'll be, yeah, we'll need to bring in some, you know, some experts in terms of the fundraising piece, and then, you know, as well as who's responsible for that plan as well. I have seen when you start to talk about capital plans like this, you know, sometimes your development directors are not always the best folks. I think sometimes you need someone that's used to capital plans, because there are some specifics and differences. But again, I think that is, you know, I don't know that we need to necessarily hash those items out tonight at the workshop. I think that having the right talent for the right fundraising plan is just as important as the right engineers, John, and the right architects and the right committees behind it. It takes all of it to make it go. So, you know, certainly we'll just want to make sure that we have a good solid plan and that council's approves that plan. So we don't, you know, get into any situation where we, you know, you get half the money and you start building and then you can't finish it or something like that. That would be my only concern, because we have some great fundraisers, but as we all know, times have certainly shifted. And we also have other fundraising commitments, other fundraising wants for the town, as we talk about multimodal, as we talk about our Windermere Wine and Dine events and our beer events and all that. So we want to make sure that we, you know, that plan is pretty specific. So maybe we can tap some new folks as well. So because I think this will be amazing, and it'll certainly marry up to that intermodal pathway very nicely. To have all of them kind of come online at the same time and new facilities a little bit prior, I think we're really going to make some amazing changes to our downtown landscape in a way that's very respectful to all of our all the things we love, but also gets us, you know, moving and looking forward for the next 50 years. I'm proud of everything, proud of everybody doing such a great job. So, any further comments?
Yes, Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
On the naming, I have no problem whatsoever on recognizing people that make a contribution to this. I think when we get into naming, if someone would be willing to put the entire bill, I have no problem sitting down discussing a name with them. But other than that, I think we're going to run into a problem. It is set up for the town of Windermere. I think Windermere Pavilion is great, and I'm just opposed to naming something after someone because of the donation they made. I know that college sports stadiums and some of the professional stadiums, yeah, you can buy the naming rights, but we're an established community, and I think we need to keep it with Windermere.
I think that, thank you, councilperson. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. I think the important thing is if you're going to go, if we're going to go down the road one way or another, the important thing is to know it ahead of time, and to that way everybody knows what you can purchase and what you cannot. You know, and you know, I mean, there are large community folks or businesses or utilities or anything that may want to work with us and partner with us. I think there may be a way, Councilman, to get to a place that's comfortable on both ends. But agreed, you know, we need to know that, we need to know what we're okay with up front. So I think that's all part of that planning document, to make sure that everybody signs off on it and feels good about it. Because, you know, the worst thing you can do is surprise somebody and or you know, get a big controversy. We don't want that. We want to know what we want up front. I think that's what we've learned from our past projects. So I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
Any further comment from council? Everybody is kind of thumbs up on this then? All right, so I think a plan, and you know, I don't know that, I didn't hear any objection to once we're at the stage for the town to work maybe possibly on funding the plans and the you know, the pre-bid package or something like that, so we can help get it off to a healthy start, as long as we have a really good fundraising plan. I'm sure that's something we can talk about. All right, good. So,
Mayor, just so
Yes, sir.
I'm clear, are we going to put this on the next agenda for official adoption of the concept, or do you want to wait until the takes this as consensus and put together the funding plan and do it in conjunction with each other?
so here's what I would recommend. I think that we have consensus to move forward. I think that would probably let's do this. Why don't we approve the concept at a council meeting with a formal nature? Then the next step would then be to build out the plan, because the plan is going to be, it could be a bit of an investment. So both in time and dollars to make sure that we've got a good one. But I think that you'll need to have both those pieces to get the full push forward. Fair enough?
Yes.
Thank you. Any objections, council? All right, good. We're making tracks. My agenda is sideways, so let me turn my head here. All right, we can move to mayor and council liaison reports. I don't think we have a ton tonight. However, I do want to certainly provide the opportunity for any comment. I'm sure by now you've read the email that I sent out regarding the pancake breakfast. I know that there may be some discussion that we need to have regarding that. I just felt that with what we're seeing, with the numbers that we're seeing, and knowing that those numbers are a lagging indicator of the direction that we're going instead of a leading indicator, I just wanted to share my deep concern in terms of moving forward with a large event. And I know that we were very anxious to have that event, but certainly I have some pretty significant concerns. And if any council or the public would like to weigh in on that, I will certainly, I know we'd all certainly listen. Any comments or anything?
I like the idea of continuing. However, one of the things that concerned me was that we were really lagging in volunteers for the event. Is that still the case?
We were contacted by some high schoolers that needed additional hours to volunteer. I'm not sure how many. I've reached out to Diane, but that was after we received the email from Councilman O'Brien. From a staff perspective, logistically, last year we had 375 people at the pancake breakfast. Right now, with the restrictions on phasing, I think that the limit is about 50 people. So I don't know if we're allowed to have more than 50 at the event at one time. And then how do we work out the logistics of service, cooking, and then having the various volunteers staged out? It's like opening up a restaurant for a morning. So logistically, I'm just trying to figure out how we would be able to do it and accommodate the CDC guidelines and the executive order.
Well, especially if you have 300, let's just say we're going to have 374 folks. We're going to need at least 20 to 25 volunteers, I would assume, to manage that. I'm sure we can get the volunteers in the end. I'm assuming, I know that personally as a parent, I would not be supportive of that at this point. I would have been much more supportive of that when we first made this decision and discussion, over 2 weeks ago. But I think, unfortunately, I think that the environment has changed quite a bit. And I think you're gonna see a lot of the parents pull back, as well as a lot of the folks who maybe typically are able to volunteer and assist, but are maybe a little extra concerned now, or potentially vulnerable population. That's where we're at. Councilperson Andrew, did you have any comment?
I would say that I'm not disappointed in the decision, but I'm disappointed in our overall circumstances. And there's not much that we can do about that. And maybe we celebrate our nation this year by protecting our neighbors and our town staff.
And I share your disappointment. And in fact, I'm probably 5 times as disappointed, I think, because I know the hard work that everyone put into protecting everyone and the tough decisions that were made and the cost of those decisions. This economic situation is not lost on me at all. I'm really concerned. I'm also concerned about, that we could potentially spread the disease further. We're certainly not going to benefit the economy in any way here. I do think it's an important community event, but I think the optics on it are not particularly great. I don't feel like we would be the example that we have been to date by having it. And I hate to say that, I love our pancake breakfast. I'm happy to come out and burn pancakes with the best of them. But I'm very concerned about the way we're trending. At the Mayor's Executive Council, there's even discussion of going back to phase 1. So, I just think we've been a leader on this. I would really like us to continue that. Councilperson Sapp?
Disappointed, obviously. It's one of my favorite events in town, but I think it's something we have to do. Mandy and I are actually having, hard discussions right now about the beer fest, whether it's going to happen or not. So,
yeah,
I understand the direction you want to take and supportive there.
Yeah, thank you, Councilperson. Councilperson Martini.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the circumstances. Also, this would be my 10th year, and I was supposed to be from trash collecting, but I think if the numbers were going in a different direction rather than the way they're going, we've got, I think, 12,000 new cases in Florida in the last 4 days or since Friday, something like that. It really does not make sense to move forward with this because it's just too dangerous for our residents and the volunteers, and we don't want to be the poster child for what not to do for social distancing and groups of that size. And I don't think we could do it economically, or efficiently with 50 people at a time. And it just, it's sad, but it just wouldn't have the same feel as it has in past years. So I think we should cancel it for this year, and let's look forward to doing something even better when things get straightened out.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why, and my commitment is 100%. Once we get the all clear and it's safe, we will have a town blowout like no other. I promise you that. So,
beer and pancakes.
Councilperson Williams, beer and pancakes. I like it.
Exactly, beer and pancakes. And I've been practicing flipping pancakes here for the last couple of weeks since we were back on. But yeah, the environment's just changed way too much. And it's the right thing to do. So I'm in favor. Let's, cancel this thing. Be done with it.
Yeah, and Councilperson Williams, it's funny that you say that because I actually hearkened back to your quote at the as I began to really ponder this again and contemplate it. You said, "Hey, I'm for moving forward, but watching the numbers." And I think we can all agree that the situation has changed in the level of seriousness since our conversation 2 weeks ago. So I thank you for your support in that. It's not easy to make those decisions. And like I said, I know folks will be disappointed. It's a traditional event for us, but we will be back better than ever. So I appreciate your support. Any other items for our council liaison reports?
Well, when we agreed to this pancake breakfast initially, we realized there was going to be a fluid situation, and we would have to change it as time went on. And I think we're to that point where the only alternative is the only solution is to go ahead and cancel it now before we get further into it, and then once everything is over, let's have a party.
I told everybody I feel like the Grinch these days.
You are.
So been a tough ride.
Not much you can do about it.
Yep.
Better safe than sorry.
Amen.
Yep. I think so. And we're seeing, I'll tell you from personal experience, the circle continues to tighten in terms of my personal knowledge of knowing people and closing offices and things like that I've had to do. So it's definitely taken a pretty big uptick, and we all need to be really mindful. Please encourage everyone to wear masks. They make a difference. Masks don't care your political party or anything else. I just want everybody to be healthy. And I think it's really important to do that and just be mindful because, you know, I do know of people that are not really going a lot of places and they're still getting close or getting exposed or close to getting exposed, you know, by people that they're working with and things like that as we all have returned to work. So just makes it a lot tougher. So, all right. Staff, Robert, do you have anything for us, sir?
Yeah, we should be moving into our temporary facilities just after July 17th. You're probably looking at an August tear down of the existing facilities. We have put up several items up for auction on the public surplus website. So if you're interested in any old office furniture, please feel free to go on there and bid. We've pretty much already raised, I think, close to about $20,000 from the sales of some of the items that we had in both PD and admin. I'm surprised for how much people are paying for some of these items, but if they're willing to pay for them, then we're willing to sell it to them. The fiscal year 2021 budget should be in your hands by July 1st. I did send out draft forms probably about 2 weeks ago, and then the latest one I just sent out this morning. We're looking at some issues with healthcare costs. Right now we're looking at an increase of about 9%. And then some things that weren't factored into this year's budget, again, was the public works shed area. That wasn't actually within the actual budget for the construction of the entire new facility. So we had to put in 50% of that within the new budget. But it is balanced based on very conservative estimates of revenues. We still, because we're Windermere, we're mostly residential based, so we don't see the flux that other municipalities are having right now with a lot of the commercial diversification in their tax funds. So hopefully, again, when we see the DOR numbers, Department of Revenue numbers in July, we're probably going to see a little bit of a dip, but not as much as we thought we would anticipate. Especially being a small town, we're able to operate off a small budget, and we have all of our directors on board, making sure that we're keeping the status quo up until we enter into the new facilities. So again, you know, even with that 9% bump in healthcare costs that we're looking at, and we'll discuss other options at our first budget workshop, but we do have a balanced budget with about 5,000 or 6,000 right now that may be able to be put in contingency, which is not a lot, but again, we still have a healthy reserve right now. Fernwood Park, if you've been contacted by anybody relative to the boardwalk over at Fernwood Park, I've pretty much put the pause button on that one. We're still looking at working with Parks and Recreation on the permitting of the boardwalk, but we've had a lot of residents reach out to us, especially the neighbors of that park relative to the boardwalk. And I will be holding a charrette or a workshop with both Parks and Rec, all of the residents of Windermere, including those that live adjacent to that piece of property, and have a discussion of what the master plan is. You know, how can it be, is there any compromise out there, or are we just steadfast on what is actually proposed in the actual master plan? The reason that there's really no rush on this is because we did have a FERDAP grant that we were awarded for this. Unbeknownst to us, and thankfully it did come up, is that if we were to use the FERDAP funds for the Fernwood Park, then we would have to open up a boat ramp for all public use. Just imagine what of a nightmare that would be as it relates to Bird Island. Speaking of Bird Island, we have been in communication with various representatives trying to see what we can do. We've had discussions progressing not only with Orange County EPD, but FWC. Councilmember Andert has been helping out as well, trying to get additional patrols out there. And I know Chief Ogden has been working on getting not just the patrols there, but making sure that they are active. Because again, that's the jumping point, not only for people to sometimes get to Bird Island, but it's also the main area where we're gonna have emergency responses because of the proximity to Bird Island. COVID numbers, again, they're continuing to go up. So we'll see what we're going to be doing with the staff. This past week, we had a little bit of a scare. We had an employee that came down and was sick, and we had to make sure that person got tested immediately. But the problem is that person had contact that day, even though they were wearing a mask, with everybody within town admin and with several people within PD. So if that person were to test positive, then we'd be looking at a possible quarantining pretty much of the entire town staff. So I may be looking at trying to do some dual shifts or separate shifts with some of the town staff for the time being until we get into the new temporary facilities. But that's why we're asking for a lot of people to make sure they make appointments. And I am requiring everybody that comes into town admin and also the employees to be wearing masks at all times. And I do have to keep reminding them of that. We did have a productive tree board meeting last week where we went over the new phase 1 ward trail, which is a multimodal trail. They made a recommendation.
And it looks like we lost Robert for a second. Well, that's how we go on these Zoom meetings. We all lose our internet. Robert, are you there?
Of the West Orange Healthcare Alliance on the funding of this, as well as I sit on a committee now that is with the COE, Winter Garden, and Windermere to work on getting all of our trails connected. That's probably about a $600,000 project, not including the bridge, but we have put $130,000 away for the last 3 years for this project. So that would be used as matching funds. So I hope to get this completed within about a 2-year time frame. It's pretty aggressive, but hopefully if we get all the buy-in from the boards and actually take it to town council, hopefully we get that money from those various entities. That's basically it. We do have a town council meeting on the 14th. Since we don't have a pancake breakfast, I wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July next weekend. And that's all I have.
Good.
Anything else for the good of the order? I see Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just didn't. So tree board had a recommendation. You said you cut out, at least on my end.
Oh, yeah, the recommendation was to approve the conceptual design, but because again, it's just like the design for the pavilion, it's concept because we didn't want to get into the actual design of it. But if it's approved as far as conceptually, as far as the width of the path, where we locate retention areas and where we locate a vegetative buffer, meaning more trees and stuff like that, that they would have a say through the walkthrough when we have an arborist to decide which trees come down. Also that they would be there to work with whoever we have as a landscape architect on the replantings to make sure that if we can't get the electricity underground or anything underground, then we try to get some trees that would be lower level so they wouldn't be chopped up like they are by Duke.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anything further from council? Brad, anything from you, sir?
No, sir, nothing done.
All right. And Town Clerk Burkhalter, anything from you? All right. Seeing nothing else for the good of the order, we will go ahead and adjourn our workshop at 5:52 p.m. I certainly thank everybody for all their input and all their time and dedication to our community. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
All right.